Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Solari Report. This is Catherine Austin Fitz. I am in Salt Lake City. I've had an amazing time, and I'm joined by a very special person, Travis Oliphant, who came to visit in the Netherlands. We had an amazing time with Tiffany Ciance, who works for you. He is the CEO of OpenTeams, one of, if not the father of artificial intelligence. Is it fair if I say that?
Forefather, pioneer of. There's a number of people make claims, but I can own the forefather claim.
And you've been living in Austin, Texas, running OpenTeams, but you're moving back to Utah.
Yes, in the middle of it this month, about 2 weeks from now. So from here, I grew up in Utah, but I've been in Texas for 20 years, effectively building companies. I had a lot of experience in education, then I went to Texas to explore entrepreneurship, and then now my kids are grown, and time to move back. But I'll still be doing the same things.
So we've been in cahoots because we want to load OpenTeams on our servers and use it internally to make the subscription experience much more. You know, everybody says, I can't find this, I can't find that. Or we have a show called Ask Catherine where we've answered the same question 50 times, you know. And yes, you can do frequently asked questions, but if people can easily find everything.
Right.
But it has to be something what I would call open source. It has to be something I would call moral, responsible technology. It has to be something that we have on our servers and can protect people's privacy. Exactly. And so when we met you and your team, we were
exactly
right.
That's what we had a conversation. You talked about what you wanted to see, which is exactly what a lot of is possible today. How do you make sure that happens? That great demoware that people are seeing from the public AIs. How do you get that same capability, but not have this feeling that your data is just kind of sucking elsewhere, that the information about yourself is going to some larger organization, that you take the capability of AI, but retain the governance and the accountability that you've already built.
So this issue of data sovereignty is getting more and more important at the national level, at the local level, and at the individual level, data sovereignty. Okay, so let's go back. How did you get involved with what is now called AI?
Yeah, great question. I mean, kind of indirectly, my background is I'm a scientist, and I was studying, I've done remote sensing, I was studying medical imaging at the Mayo Clinic, and I encountered Python and trying to solve my problems. I was doing large scale science analysis, and I needed language to help me do that. And I found Python, and I started to contribute to Python. So I started to do a lot of just writing code, sharing that code on the internet, collaborating with people all over the world. And then kind of that grew into involvement in open source. So that grew in to a project called SciPy. And SciPy became the foundation of a lot of science. So a lot of people in the world out there know about SciPy. A lot of scientists know about SciPy and they used it. And then that led to a library called NumPy, which I wrote when I was a professor.
Okay,
I wrote this
spell
NumPy
that for
library.
everybody.
So NumPy is NUMPY.
Okay.
So it's the foundation of array computing in Python. So that's one reason I could kind of claim possibly the idea of forefather of AI is because
you're an OG.
The OG is because I've been doing AI-like experiments ever since I was a researcher. Right. As AI is it's a model building. You're trying to figure out how to build a model and get information from data. Modern neural networks were one of the possibilities that we used all the way back then. And people were trying to figure out how to have scientists do it because there's a lot of orchestration of computing, orchestration of code. It's a lot of work. Right. And so a lot of what we were doing is making that work of putting all the stuff together to make something useful easier.
Right.
And that's basically been the journey I've been on for a long time, is helping scientists do their job easier.
People wanting to use NumPy sort of drew you away from being a scientist.
Correct. That's exactly right. So in fact, writing NumPy led me out of the world of academia into the world of business. But what did it first was in the world of open source. So I became this open source enthusiast, working hard with a lot of people, building a lot of tools, and a whole ecosystem of people. I often say that, me and my closest 1,000 friends kind of took over science. And like a lot of scientists went from using various tools, using open source tools around Python to publish papers, to do research. So I've had a chance to talk to people that found the black holes, that found the Higgs boson. Like a lot of them have been using tools in this ecosystem that many of my friends have been building for 30 years.
is open source code, models, etc. It's like a public recipe. It's freely available for anyone to use, see, and modify. So you can find it on websites like GitHub, where developers share their work with the world. On the flip side, closed source code is private. Think of it like a secret recipe that a company keeps under lock and key. You can use the final product, eat the food as it's done, but you can't see how it's made. So most of the software we use daily, like Microsoft Word or Adobe Photoshop, is closed source. You can use these programs, but you can't look inside to see how they work, including programs like ChatGPT, closed source. We can't actually see how the model works. When you find open source code, you'll see different types of licenses that explain how you can use it. Some licenses, like the MIT license, which is a common license, are very generous. They let you do almost anything with the code as long as you give credit to the original creators. So that's kind of like sharing a recipe, but asking people to mention where they got it from. Other licenses can be less permissive, like allowing you to use the models only for research, but not make money off of them. Now let's talk about why open source AI models are becoming increasingly important. First, they give you privacy. When you use a closed source AI service like ChatGPT, your data has to be sent to their computers, their servers. But with open source models, you can run the AI on your own computer or server. This means your sensitive information stays with you. Open source models can also save you money. So while closed source AI services can charge you for each query, sometimes pennies, but sometimes dollars, open source models let you run the software for just the cost of your computer or server. So yes, running AI requires some powerful computers, but once you have the setup, you can use it as much as you want without paying per use. So it's like buying a coffee maker instead of going to the cafe every day. Perhaps most importantly, open source AI helps democratize this powerful technology. Instead of a few big companies controlling AI development, anyone with the right skills can examine, modify, and improve these models. Researchers in universities, developers in small companies, and even just hobbyists can contribute to advancing AI. This widespread access leads to more innovation across all industries and use cases and helps ensure AI develops in ways that benefit everyone, not just big tech companies. This has created an important debate in the AI community because while closed source models help companies protect their investments, open source models are making AI more accessible, private, and affordable for everyone. So as AI becomes more important in our daily lives, having open source options ensures that this technology remains in the hands of the many, not just the few.
So when did you start OpenTeams?
So OpenTeams came later. It's kind of an evolved. I won't go into the whole story, but kind of maybe sort of summarize it quickly. I first went to Texas and founded a company called Anaconda after doing some consulting work. Anaconda became a distribution company, how to get all this stuff installed. Put a lot of heart and soul into that. Then after I left Anaconda and then started another consulting company called Quansight and a venture fund. So I've always, my experience building companies.
You like to incubate.
I like to help. I like to incubate. I like to help people become owners.
Right.
What I realize is we need a lot more owners in the world.
Yeah.
We need a lot more people who understand the concept of starting companies. We need a lot more capital structure to help them start those companies.
Right.
I got deeply fascinated into that. So when I left my first startup, how do I help create more owners? And so that was the foundation of what I've been working on since. And so we started a venture studio. The venture studio is it's just a company that organizes capital and then itself might start companies and then try to find CEOs and people to run them. OpenTeams is one of those companies. OpenTeams is one of those companies we incubated in our studio, started. I've had various CEOs run it. I took over as CEO. I was the CEO originally. I took over recently as the CEO when I realized how critical it is for us to push the message hard that everybody needs to own their own AI system, their own intelligence hub, we call it. So they can become
They need to have sovereignty over
their sovereignty, sovereignty over their data. It starts with sovereignty over your data, and then data leads to intelligence.
Right.
And so you can't have one without the other. You need data sovereignty to lead to AI sovereignty. And you need to make sure that you don't lose your data sovereignty as you're sending information to AIs that aren't in your control. So that mission became very, very critical. And so how do we make that happen? Because there's a lot of need for it, but there's a lot of capital invested in centralized AI.
Right.
And pull it together. And AI is still a new thing for so many people. For me, it's not new. For me, it's a iteration of something I've been studying for years and years and years. And so we partner with Meta, we partner with Google, we partner with NVIDIA, we partner with the people that are building the tools that help AI become possible. And then that partnership led.
I avoid those people.
Well, it's hard to avoid them entirely.
I know. I understand completely.
And where you to be, it's great for your subscribers and for you to understand that actually where some of those organizations have been helpful is they're contributing to open source.
Right.
So essentially, the degree to which they contribute to open source is a positive outcome,
Yes.
regardless of everything else they're doing, if we can keep that open source open and we can educate people about what they can do with it.
Right.
That's where we start. That's where OpenTeams came from, was how do we help companies use open source more effectively? And it started actually.
So your market
2019.
is companies.
Our market is companies, organizations, countries.
Right.
Any organization that knows it wants to build AI and own it.
Mhm.
And then what's been happening over the past several years is the cost has been coming down.
Right.
2 years ago, I'd tell this story and, what could I say? Well, it might take $5 million to actually
Right.
build an AI that you would own. It doesn't cost that anymore.
Right.
It's now much more accessible to just any company and the amount you pay really depends on how much you want to do.
So
So you can
here's what's
incrementally go
interesting.
from where you are to where you want to be.
If you're using Anthropic,
Mhm.
if you're using Claude and you've got a subscription, that price can't possibly be the market price.
No.
It has to be hugely subsidized.
Correct. It is
Okay.
absolutely hugely subsidized right now.
Right. Now, if that floated to the market price, I
Yes.
don't know how high it'd be, but it'd be much higher. At the same time, the cost of open source is coming down.
Yes.
Now, it was interesting. When I started my first company after I left the administration, I did an analysis, and what I figured out, it was I could either buy the software or I could do open source and spend the money on people. And if I could find the right people, I was much better off doing that.
Yeah.
And so tell me about the economics on AI. Is it the same thing? It's
So right
if
now,
Anthropic starts to rust
Right,
at market
correct.
price and your price is dropping, are you starting to look is open source starting to look very economic?
correct.
Right.
Right now, and for the past 2 years, the VC market, the investors have been subsidizing OpenAI and Anthropic to provide pretty powerful AI at.
We need a
Way under-
stronger
under-
word than subsidizing.
We do. It's a stronger word. It's like they've literally
It's like
been.
a tsunami of
It's a
subsidy.
tsunami of subsidization. No, in fact, I have a really good friend who pays $100 a month, and literally because he could see how much tokens he was using, and looks at the price of what that would have cost him if he were paying the token price, the current token price, which already is not necessarily market. He was paying $16,000 of token price for
Right.
$100.
Right.
So there's at least $15,000 a month was being given. And so whenever you're given something like that, that there's something in
Well,
return.
you're helping to train the model too.
You're helping that company create dominance,
Right.
because that's the game. It's like, how do I get market dominance so then I can, then you're going to need them. Now, fortunately, open source is so strong and there's so much interest. We still need to make the easy buttons, and we've been working on that. And many people have been working on that. It's getting easier and easier to actually do this yourself. And so I'm really excited to help people do this, because once they realize, that Claude or OpenAI has given us a really cool demo, and they are. They're doing
Right.
they're giving a lot of examples of what you can do.
Right.
And now you can take those and ensure that this is supporting your vision of the future, your vision of the world. And that's what we need, actually. What we need is AI, artificial intelligence. It's really a tool. It's I call them loop token predictors. Like it's looped token predictors. Because when you're just predicting a token, then you put it in a loop, and it's actually powerful. It's a really powerful concept, and seem to be simulating human conversation really, really well. But it's not reasoning yet.
Uh-huh.
Right? I'm definitely in the camp of many people out there that are saying, look, this is not intelligence. It's not reasoning. It's not.
It's not.
But it's doing some really impressive, intelligent things that clearly we do in ourselves too.
So my number one goal at Solari is first and all to understand it.
Mm-hmm.
But then the second thing is I've been applying it to all sorts of different functions to see, where we can use it smartly, where we should avoid it, what the dangers are. I want to understand what this means to a family or a small business. And one of the things I will tell you, it is hands down the best search engine I've ever had.
No, it's impressive.
It's impressive.
It's absolutely impressive. It's interpolating the world's knowledge in a way that you can interact with in a natural language. It's beautiful. Like, it's a really impressive example.
Or the world's idiocy. I mean,
sorry.
It's a search
the
engine.
world's text.
Right. Thank you.
Whatever that might be.
Right.
And more, it's a lot of idiocy. Correct.
Right.
It'll reflect to you whatever that happens to be. So biases are included.
As a search engine, I mean, you have to go to the links. You have to figure it out. You have to do the research. But as a search engine, it's really, really good.
Yeah, it's super good. And especially since they've added the token prediction with tools.
Right.
They've added tools. And what that does, it just means, the token that is predicted is not a text. It's a function to call or a web to search. And then it goes and does that and feeds that back into the context. And that starts to give the sense of reasoning, because you're now calling tools, and tools are programs. Tools are computable computation that occurs that then augments the context, augments the predictive surface. Because when you're making a prediction, what it's doing is it's taking all of this context window, all this information, and then predicting what the next word should be. It's a token, but a token roughly is a part of a word, or a symbol, or if it's a video, it's part of a sound or part of an image. That's a fairly straightforward thing. I mean, the thing that machine learning, artificial intelligence is fundamentally, it's this universal approximation theorem that says, I'm going to if I can construct a function, if I can construct the concept of a function where I have a black box where I have inputs and an output, that function can be as broad as you want. Mm-hmm. And if I have enough data, I can train that function I can use a computer to use the data to come up with a version of that function. It's like nonlinear curve fitting. Many people understand curve fitting. Now, it's very high dimensional. So some of our intuition doesn't work. In fact, our intuition is limits to 3 or 4 dimensions. We're talking about, 10 billion or a trillion dimensional space. Mm-hmm. Our intuitions don't always map to that space, but nonetheless, it's still, I put in parameters, and the parameters I find the fit for those parameters. That's what my training data does. It's helping me figure out what the model is. And then I just feed it inputs and I come up with an output. And the cool thing about AI is that anything you can imagine, if you can imagine a black box, you can create a function that does that. And that's what we have here.
So in the 90s, I discovered the internet in 1989, and then the World Wide Web shortly thereafter. And then it really started to be something you could use in the mid 90s. And we started to work on, believe it or not, digital money. We had we called it just-in-time money. But our notion was that these kinds of software tools should make the small guy much more competitive up against the big guy.
Yes.
And we were doing a whole series of things to allow financial liquidity of equity in communities by place. So there's place-based venture funds that could be publicly traded. We had a software tool called IPO in a box.
Wow.
And you could click radio dots and spit out your prospectus. We had another tool called Community Wizard where you could map out all the government money, all the federal money, sources and uses of credit money in your place, because the federal government was, you would pay taxes to Washington. They would pay a contractor $125 per hour to do something that could be done in that community for 25 plus healthcare. So there were all these arbitrages.
All these inefficient arbitrage loops.
Well, they aren't inefficient in the sense that they are intentionally set up so that the big guys get the money.
Right. I guess efficiently concentrating money.
Yeah, so they were politically efficient if you wanted control.
Yes.
But what I discovered was that the financial cost of control was much bigger than anybody can imagine. I mean, it's like bigger than the solar system. It's unbelievable how expensive central management and control is.
How much it costs to actually support that system
and to get everybody to comply. You need lots of rules, lots of enforcement. You're trying.
Well, that's an echo of what's happening now.
Exactly. But It's getting worse.
Yes, it's getting worse.
And then the cost was dramatic. Now the cost is off the charts.
Yes.
So anyway, but we did a lot of simulations to see what could happen if we were free to just re-engineer all the government money to optimize the economy. And it was so shocking. I didn't believe it at first. My smartest guy did the calculation. I was like, no, that's not possible. And then when I realized what was possible, I thought, oh my God, tyranny is very expensive. So
that's my thesis too. That's why it doesn't work for very long. It can work for a while, but
it's been working for my whole life.
A while could be an entire life. I mean,
that's true. But here's the thing. It seems to me that what you're talking about is a tool that when added to all the other tools. I keep telling my audiences since I've been here in Utah, if I wrote a book about America from World War II on, it would be called How the Local Boys Got Rolled.
Wow.
Right. And so the question is, can these tools on an open source basis unroll the local boys and get us back in the game?
So that is my hope, right? Yes. But I think after, especially meeting you, understanding all the information you have about how we got here in the current economy we have, it's not trivial. like we're up against a lot of powerful interests and money. That's
right.
And then also, but that's partly why I'm speaking more and more is because in order for that to work, people have to understand.
Right.
You have to get the word out because there's massive.
They have to know there's an alternative.
They have to know there's an alternative.
Right.
And they have to have faith and believe in that alternative enough to do it.
Right.
And part of that is getting it simple enough and cost effective enough so that you can actually do it. Because if the only answer is yes, the local boys can win, but it's going to take $10 million every time, then you're up against, you're going to have to allocate resources. But if it's not, if it takes just, I can just, instead of spending $200 a month on an Anthropic subscription, I could spend $50 a month on a subscription that actually I know keeps my data local.
Right.
And it's actually faster. It's even just as fast or even faster.
Right.
Then that starts to turn the needle. Eventually, so I'm hopeful for this.
Yeah.
It's challenging because the intense paying off people. I mean, people are being paid off basically to use Anthropic right now.
It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable.
So subsidization.
Now, I've been using Anthropic, so
Me too.
Yeah.
Like,
okay.
I use everything actually. I'm not against it. These are impressive tools. There's impressive people who work hard to make these tools useful.
So here's the problem, though. If you look at how AI is being positioned and communicated, it is being used to implement a control grid. So it's been weaponized by, the guys who weaponize everything. So we have a wonderful wrap-up called Omnivore, which is the weaponization of everything. So, you name it, they've weaponized it. Milk, I don't know, pink polka dot, everything. But AI, the clear message is we're going to use this to control you. That's the best image. But, AI is going to be in charge and it's smarter than you and you're stupid. And, so if you look at the oligarchs' message about AI, it's making a lot of people.
Who do you think is doing this? Because I know that 99.9% of the people actually involved aren't aware of that.
I agree. They're not.
That's not.
They're totally. I would say. So one of the best reads of so far that I've read in the last 12 months is Karen House's book on OpenAI. I don't know if you've read it.
No, yeah.
And it's hysterical because I know a lot about if you want to understand risk and evil in this world. I've learned a lot about that. I've experienced a lot of research, but you have these amazing conversations where all these brilliant people are sitting around in OpenAI talking about how when they reach general intelligence, they're going to solve the healthcare problem. And I'm laughing my head off it because it's just like, stop poisoning people. They'll be fine. You don't need 1 ounce of AI to solve this problem. It's not a medical problem.
So you see that as a tool for persuasion to get people to buy into another story. Because it's not real. They're not going to really solve it. They could solve the problem elsewhere.
I see a group of highly intelligent people working on AI who have not a clue how the world works.
Yeah.
Okay. I was one of those people once upon a time.
I completely understand that because I was a very bright academic who was 30 years old all the way through my PhD before I uncovered a lick of economic reasoning. I was in that same boat and I realized, oh my goodness, I am super knowledgeable about a ton of things and I'm completely clueless about how the world works. I know this is true.
Right. We have a whole part of the economy where people make money complexifying problems instead of solving them. And the solutions are pretty simple.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But the
solutions may not give you control. Like the solutions may not benefit the person trying to solve it.
Well, but it's if we solve the problems, it certainly won't benefit the guys trying to centralize things. But
right.
So many of the people I know who feel very negative towards AI are feeling very negative about their perception it's being unleashed to control us.
Exactly. Exactly. And I share those concerns, right? Which is partly why I want to get the word out that it doesn't have to be that way.
Right.
AI actually came from the sea, kind of in a space of open source cooperation that's global. It involves millions of people actually that themselves are all just trying to cooperate and have found mechanisms to cooperate in amazing ways. In fact, I actually recommend anybody to go watch the Python documentary.
Oh, really? What's it called?
It's called the Python documentary. It was produced by Cult Repo. It's on YouTube. You just go watch it. It does an incredible job of explaining where Python came from.
Okay, Google, where was PyCon held in 2015?
In Montreal.
Oh, it's Montreal. Really?
So the story goes that Guido invented Python over a Christmas holiday.
I showed it to Lambert and I said, look what I made. And he types one very short line of code and it crashes the interpreter. And he knew that it would.
The point escaped me. I didn't know why he thought this was better than ABC and why he had done this whole project.
It was a pretty crushing experience, to be honest.
Immediately on trying it, I was just amazed and thought this can't be as good as it is.
You can see Python code, even if you've never written a line of Python. And if you know how programs work, you can understand it and grasp it.
You see that click in real time.
We were paid our salaries every 2 weeks, and then suddenly in late October, we weren't.
It was a moment where the shit could have hit the fan. If all the Python guys went their separate ways, Python wasn't big enough to survive that at the time.
Trying to build a language is non-trivial. That actually took real design, real thought, and real ecosystem collective innovation over the course of decades.
That was my car when I lived in Virginia.
I think it was me who suggested that Guido be called the benevolent dictator. And then Barry suggested benevolent dictator for life.
Python 2 to Python 3 transition was extremely difficult for the community.
Some of that probably got away from us a little bit in hindsight.
I did feel like Python has a chance of becoming irrelevant.
When you don't have role models who you can relate to, you start believing that you cannot do it.
When I first saw the walrus operator, I didn't like it.
It got very vocal and blown up.
One person's succinct, elegant code can be another person's unreadable puzzle or a fustigated mess.
Nobody had expected I would resign, and certainly not that I would rage quit over this issue, which essentially it was.
How much of Python's success in AI can be traced back to these scientists in the 90s? 100%.
Python's a fantastic language, even if you're not a scientist. I just don't think it would have risen to the level of dramatic usage without the science first, data science, and machine learning story. We had a massive impact in the world.
Okay.
And because Python came from a global cooperation of individual people.
Yeah, and it's amazing.
It's a beautiful example of what can emerge if you just let intelligent people freely interact with each other.
So it was when I had this beautiful mansion in downtown Washington, and when I decided to fight, really fight on the litigation, I decided to sell everything, all the art, all the antiques, everything but the family antiques was going. And eBay had just started. So we said, let's try this. And over the next couple of years, we did hundreds of transactions with people all over the country, totally on trust, not one problem. It was amazing. And I was just dealing with individuals or small businesses.
Yeah.
Now, my corporate experience, that can't, there's a problem every week.
Yes.
And so but it was the same. You'll see the same in open source.
Exactly.
It's just like unbelievable.
Because you said something earlier that I really resonate with. I'm also was an enthusiast of the early internet because I saw in it the power to empower people.
That's why we invented just-in-time money.
Yes, it's amazing. And I want people to understand that this did happen. It is happening.
Yeah.
Even while the control grid came in and, the monorepoists, I call them, the monolithics have come in. And it's constantly always the battle between the centralists, the decentralists.
Did you ever know Eric Hughes? He was from Utah.
I didn't.
He was the guy who hacked ClipperChip.
He
was on the front page of Wire, long blonde hair.
No, I did not know him, but
he's bad. He's still here in Utah, but I remember right after he got on the front page of Wire, he came to Hamilton. And we spent a whole day with the firm and trying to invent just-in-time money.
Yeah.
And
there's enormous potential to continue to, that's kind of the thing I want to help people understand. There's enormous potential to build things that are distributed, that are enabling.
Well,
you don't have to fall into the centralized AI, which is going to become even more centralized if we just
it's scary.
If we let it.
So I have one partner who says we've got to get AI to go completely out of control, because otherwise, it's either the control grid or out of control. And the out of control can tap into.
What do you mean by out of control? You mean just let it go?
It's totally distributed and they can't control it.
Correct. Yes.
It's not only out of our control; it's out of their control.
Correct. No,
right.
And I believe because it does give you power. It does give you. There are models now that are open weight models you can deploy, and there's some open source models also emerging because there are some large companies who recognize this and they're their best interest also create a distributed ecosystem of model builders. Like NVIDIA, for example, does not want to have 10 customers.
Right.
They want 1 billion customers. Right. So they actually are
That's why we have a subscription model at retail.
Exactly. Because they want people to be using. So we're actually aligned in a league with them. Qualcomm also wants to have AI chips. AMD, there's all the hardware manufacturers can be allies here. Now it says they have to, of course, a lot of their biggest customers are some of the hyperscalers, and so they're not going to come out and kind of be adamantly supporting distributed AI, but they are encouraged by it. They do want to see it.
So let me get back to on my way to Salt Lake City, I came through Sioux Falls. And we're working with a wonderful group of the leader of our team, Cash, is a PhD from MIT and used to be an engineer in Silicon Valley until the pandemic, when they told them that their kids were going to have to wear masks. And whoop, the next thing you know, they're living in South Dakota, so they don't have to wear masks at school during the lockdown. So, but we were talking about the size of American data centers. So we've got 5,500 in process in the United States, significantly more than any other country in the world, including China. China, I think, has, I don't know, I've heard figures from 385 to 550, but, and they may have more per data center, but still and one of the things we're talking about was why this level of data center has to be for control. It can't be, this is not what we need for our cloud and tech.
It's not what we need. I would rather see 55 million smaller data centers.
Right.
Essentially where everybody's home can become a data center for themselves.
Right.
And then if they want to share a portion of that with others, they can. I mean, you could.
And then they have complete data sovereignty.
And then they would have complete data sovereignty. Exactly.
Right.
Not everybody may want to do that, but you can have a local data center. You can have a local provider. I don't know for sure. I don't know the meaning of all things. I don't know why people might do this, but the optics on it sure does explain the data. But I think a lot of people are speculating, partly because we have these big centralized AIs, these big centralized hyperscalers. I mean, Amazon's been making a lot of money selling centralized compute to people.
Right.
Because this notion of compute has been around for a long time.
Right.
And people have had distributed compute. It's actually very interesting, the ebb and flow, because I think we're in for another evolution, just like the 80s when the PC era emerged. Because before the PC era, it was mainframes. Like you wanted computing, you went to a big mainframe, you got your answer. So in the evolution of computing, it's why Microsoft showed up, because IBM thought, there's nothing there. Business computing is going to be on the mainframe. And so they kind of gave Microsoft the PC market.
Right.
And lo and behold, actually the demand for PCs was enormous. I think there's the same phenomenon can happen here, where the demand for AI as a distributed phenomenon is going to be enormous. Okay. And so we're not going to have the mainframe provided AI as the only, they'll be there.
Right.
But it's actually, I would be very concerned about investing in speculative data centers. Because I don't know that.
Right, I would be too.
I don't think they're actually going to be. It's always hard to predict the future because they could rent themselves to other local providers too. But because getting more energy and getting compute are valuable things, but we haven't figured out the model yet.
There's only one way the economics work, and that's if it delivers financial transaction control. That's the only way the economics.
I could see that. Certainly, I don't know the companies in detail, but I can see one of the companies is over-levered. I know something about this. I know a lot of people who buy hardware in this space. All of the new hardware, and particularly the hard drives, actually have all been bought out.
Right.
And there's no more manufacturing in hard drives in particular. It's going to happen. And so there's going to be a massive constraint for new hardware.
Right. Right.
And the demand they're projecting is mismatched against the actual hardware that's going to be producible. And so there's an absolute gap between what they're saying demand will be to justify the data centers and what the actual availability of hardware is.
Right.
So the costs are going to go up there.
If you look at what is happening, as an economic matter, it makes sense if you're going to get the control grid. If you succeed,
that's
the economic value of getting the control grid will justify what is going on. If you fail, you've got the greatest misallocation of capital just about since Scotland got bankrupted. That's a sad story, but you know, I hate to say that, but the sort of the war. So let me step back and say it this way. Tim Wu wrote a wonderful book, and I think I asked you in the Netherlands if you'd read it. It's called The Master Switch. And he goes back 200 years and goes through the history of the development of information technology. So a new technology comes out, and all the entrepreneurs are all excited, and they're like, oh, this is great, we're all going to be free. And there's this wonderful blossoming of entrepreneurial prototyping and testing, and then suddenly, whoa, it centralizes. You know, and then it happens again through the telegram, and then there's the telegraph, and then the telephone, and then and it keeps centralizing. And so this time, when it centralizes, though, if you get financial transaction control, it's going to centralize in a lock that could stop, that could be it. And so it's almost as though a centuries-old battle is coming to a head. And the question is, will tyranny win or will freedom win? And this is the
ultimate question. I think it's a really great way to look at the arc of history, frankly, because I think this conflict or this ebb and flow happens repeatedly.
Well, I went back and I looked at my family history, and we're in Utah, which has like the best family history place in the world. But I went and I looked and I realized they had, for 500 years, they'd been moving to get away from the tyranny. And they kept moving west. And, now when I was an investment advisor, everybody kept saying, tell me how I can get away, And I feel like saying after 500 years, there is no way. We need to walk into the center and deal with it. And
that's a really interesting point. Is that for you just to escape to another place, and now it's like, well, it's all over. So we have to actually deal with it head on. Well, I'd be an advocate that AI can help us because it is a technology. It's a technology that could be used for whatever purpose.
Well, if they have
empowering individuals,
right? If they get machine guns and we say, "Oh, we hate that," we're not going to use machine guns. Correct. We're going to use bow and arrows. That's not going to work.
Then you're going to be enslaved.
Right.
No, that's right. You've got to use the technology that's available, and it can absolutely be. The seeds have been already planted. That's the good news. Like, there's a lot of challenging news. I mean, there's a lot of investment. There's a lot of stories happening. This is actually why I get up every day, and I'm so excited about OpenTeams because it builds on a career for me. It builds on what I've been doing ever since I was a scientist, trying to make technology easier for scientists to understand, all the way through open source, all the way through building businesses. So I'm excited to help people not just lean into building intelligence hubs, but also lean into building businesses that are distributed and centralized.
This is what H.L. Hunt said. I told you this in the Netherlands. He said, if this country's worth saving, it's worth saving at a profit. And the reason that's important is if you're going to have a revolution, you have to finance it.
Yes, you do.
And it has to be a for-profit revolution. The revolution has to cover its costs. And that means it has to be entrepreneurs.
Correct.
And thousands, if not millions of them leading the way.
Correct.
Saying, no, we will be free. And the citizens will support us sufficient, so that we can cover our costs.
And that's the good news. The good news is you can actually build businesses easier than ever because the AI can support the gap of talent. Building a business, one of the challenges is no one person has all the skill necessary to essentially deliver much of anything at scale, certainly not at scale.
Right.
And so a lot of building a business is organizing a group to actually do the things and cover the gaps. AI can help.
Mm-hmm.
It really can. And so we're in this interesting dynamic where lots of people are leaning into coding agents, coding tools to help them not only build software, but also build processes, build this agentic engineering that's emerging everywhere.
Right.
People are leaning into it. Even people are saying the company of one. I think there's in Argentina, in fact, they're looking at.
So I'm very worried about
I know, I am too, but it's leaning into the same idea of a company of one. So first of all, I don't think company of one's a good idea.
Right.
Company of three, maybe. Because you need a group, you need something, you need a core central. a company of
You need
one.
somebody to tell you you're wrong.
You need somebody to tell you you're wrong. Otherwise, you end up with AI psychosis, actually,
Right,
which is a
right,
thing.
right.
I've actually been with people who have been, okay, you've been reading your AI too long. Like, you need to get out and talk to a real person and get real feedback on that idea. Because AI, a lot of the models are trained to keep you engaged. And so because of that reinforcement learning to keep you engaged, they're just sycophants. Right? It'll just tell you how brilliant your ideas are. And, it's wonderful for your ego because you're like, here's an idea I have. What do you think?
To me, it feels a little creepy.
Well,
I'm not.
to have somebody just telling you how
I'm
wonderful
from
you
Wall
are.
Street. We don't.
Exactly.
buy
It would
that.
be creepy if you're like, wait a minute, I want it. And you can tell it. And there are people that do actually criticize this. Tell me what's wrong with it.
Yeah.
And you can
they'll do a good job.
They'll do a good job of doing that. You have to orient it.
Yeah. Although you have to be careful. You can never, again, it's a good search engine. You can never ask it anything outside of, if there's a strong official orthodoxy, don't try and get it to go outside.
It's a good point.
Yeah.
If you have a countercultural idea, an idea that's true, but not well in the Albertson window, you can go outside of it a little bit, but I hear you actually. I've asked some questions.
So I would say I would never, I've never tried to use AI on many healthcare topics, but I would never ask it a healthcare thing because it's just, I'm going to get
It'll
terrible.
give you the orthodoxy.
Right.
It'll give you
give you orthodoxy.
the traditional answers. Yeah.
Okay. So you brought up Argentina and I want to talk about this. I'm working on legislation to put up guardrails on programmable money. So here's my concern. My concern is we have a very robust surveillance system. Your car, your house, your TV,
More and more
phone.
devices out there that can track you.
And everything's tracking you.
Your Wi-Fi.
And your Wi-Fi, your flock camera. And a lot of that is video, which is a data hog. It's going to the data centers. But then it can be connected up to financial transaction control. Now, right now in the financial system, there are all sorts of laws and rules that financial institutions have to obey, and they intercede. So the Canadian truckers, they interceded. But that system is not automated in the way you can automate if you can get everybody into a all digital financial system, and you can apply AI and connect it to the surveillance systems. And then you've got, the nightmare of the social credit system that's constantly following you around and saying that you and I can't eat pizza, Yeah,
you've spoken correctly.
Right.
We're going to limit your transactions.
Right. Yeah. I think programmable money is coming. If you look at what's now been announced, the banks are planning on moving their bank deposits on a distributed ledger. The stable coins are coming out on a distributed ledger, and now DTC is setting up distributed ledgers to move 114 trillion of stocks and bonds on a distributed ledger. And if you can do an automated lock and control filter on all of those different assets and money on an automated basis that skips over the institutions, you're talking about being able to not only control people's assets, but take them.
Yeah. And then we can't allow that.
Right.
We can't allow, our society thrives with distributed ownership and freedom.
Right.
Which ultimately the genius of the Constitution, the genius of the organization of our government in the United States was balance of power. You're going to checks and balances.
Right. But here's the other thing.
You can't allow one organization to have all of that decision making.
The power of markets happens with free speech.
Yes. Totally agreed.
I can't, on Wall Street, I can't tell you how many markets succeeded because we kept hearing and telling each other things we didn't want to hear.
Yes. But
we were clear. We were very
clear. Free speech is predicated on information diversity.
Yes.
Like if you just have a single channel of information, people can freely speak, but they won't speak anything beyond what they're hearing.
Yeah.
There's no other ideas being spread. So the idea, most people agree completely. Most people, not actually, it's true. It's being argued these days. But a lot of people seem to support free speech, but then they turn around and they'll go get information from one source.
Right.
Which is, okay, you're not really showing that you want to own your ideas. AI can make that worse. Couple that with the sycophancy, the idea of AI just feeding you, and you have a single model that's telling you, this is what we have to avoid. You need to make sure there's millions of models because you don't want, all of a sudden now, we worried about the news, the mainstream media or the news giving us our information.
Right.
What happens when the AI is doing it in a subtle way and making you think it's your idea, but it's actually just being fed?
Right.
You are now part of a cult.
Right.
Like all of a sudden, AI enables cult creation at a scale we've never seen before.
Yes. That's a very good point.
Yeah.
I hadn't thought of that. Okay. So how do we put up these guardrails? Because you have to put up guardrails that are technological, that are legal, and that are so we have to put up guardrails on different tracks. And this thing, and I have to go in and confirm and find the exact legal description. But my read on social media was just, if an agent that is going back and forth between the surveillance system and the financial transaction control, if that agent is in a limited liability owned by the agent and has no liability, then...
it's a terrible idea to give a company, an agent, the accountability of a company. Like, I think it's already a little challenging to have... I like the idea of longstanding companies that can outlive people. That's good. It's a cooperation thing. But yet, ultimately, accountability is in the heart of people.
Right. And there needs to be a death penalty for company. But there's going to be one for human. There needs to be one for company.
I agree with that.
I do.
I think we've got already some inappropriate tendencies in the way we organize ourselves as humans, as people, because accountability is a human thing.
Right.
And you have to hold people accountable. Even if it's a company, there's ultimately a human or a set of humans that are accountable for that company. Always. There's a board. There's somebody that we pretend that it's like this independent thing. And so you cannot have an agent, and AI is not at all ready to even be accountable for anything.
But here's
you can't give it a company. You can't make it a company.
Right. For me, this controversy started was around the Lavender system that Israel was using.
I don't know the system.
And it was part of what they were using to do assassinations with.
Oh, I see.
To do the war, pick the bombing.
Okay.
So the software would pick the bombing targets. And I remember reading an article, I think it was in The Economist, that said, apparently under the system, no officer can be held liable for an international crime because the software picked the targets.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
So we're talking about sort of wiggling out of accountability by using agents or software.
Yeah, and that's a good point. So it's a continuation of that trend to allow software to wiggle out of accountability, and that's just kind of taking the ultimate end to where then nobody's accountable.
AI was introduced to warfare to make it more precise. It promised exact targets, fewer mistakes, and no civilian deaths. Recent conflicts, however, suggest the opposite. And here's the uncomfortable part. Your data, what you type, search, share, feeds the systems making those decisions. Let me explain. Modern militaries, the US and Israel especially, are increasingly using AI-driven decision support systems, or DSS. Here's the process simplified. First, data collection, surveillance feeds, metadata, online behavior, movement patterns. We're talking about massive data sets. Then analysis. AI detects patterns, maps networks, connects people to places and infrastructure. It does so at a speed that humans would take ages to obtain the same results. Lastly, output, target identification, threat scores, strike priority lists. In theory, these systems help ensure legal compliance, such as proportionality assessments. But do they? Let's take a look at recent conflicts that implemented DSS AIs. In the US, one of the main systems is Project Maven, developed by Palantir. It was first deployed in Iraq and Syria during the war on the Islamic State group in 2017. Investigations later found that US-caused civilian deaths were severely underreported, often due to faulty intelligence. Maven was later used in Yemen. Between 2023 and 2025, US operations against the Houthis caused more civilian casualties than the previous 2 decades of US operations there combined. More recently, during the war on Iran, strikes on civilian infrastructure, like the Minab Girls' School, where over 165, mostly girls, were killed. Over 1,000 targets were struck in the first 24 hours of the conflict.
Humans will always make final decisions on what to shoot and what not to shoot, and when to shoot. But advanced AI tools can turn processes that used to take hours and sometimes even days into seconds.
The extent of AI implementation can be seen in the genocide in Gaza, where Israel used several DSS AI systems, Lavender, Gospel, and Where's Daddy? Yes, These are the names the Israeli military gave them. These systems assign people a probability score, how likely they are to be Hamas, based on surveillance data. They're designed to speed up targeting, to compress the time between identifying a target and striking it, a presumed precision that bypasses human oversight. But according to a whistleblower, some of these systems allowed for up to 300 civilian deaths to be considered acceptable collateral damage for a single target.
So there was permission to kill 300 people as collateral damage.
In the West Bank, AI systems like Wolfpack have been used to categorize and track Palestinians and were linked to automated weapon technologies at checkpoints like Smart Shooter. So how did we get here? Surprise, surprise, Jeffrey Epstein was involved in this too. 10 years ago, the sex offender coordinated lunches between Peter Thiel, Palantir's founder, and former Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Barak. This is the same Palantir that has started providing services to the UK after Keir Starmer was introduced to Thiel through no other than Peter Mandelson. Clearly, this isn't just about militaries, but about an entire ecosystem fueled by big tech. Now, while these big tech companies aren't necessarily created for military purposes, unlike Palantir, they all provide vital services. Companies like Amazon, Microsoft, Google, OpenAI, and Anthropic all provide infrastructure, data, or AI capabilities for dual-use research and development. ChatGPT recently signed a deal with the Pentagon. Amazon and Google partnered with Israel for the Project Nimbus contract, which obliges the company to provide its tech even if Israel violates regulations. During the current war, the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps stated, since the main element in designing and tracking assassination targets are American ICT and AI companies, in response to these crimes, from now on, the main and effective institutions involved in terrorist operations will be our legitimate targets. Then listing a series of companies, including Palantir. Iran also hit Amazon hubs in Bahrain and the UAE. Speaking of the UAE, Edge Group, a state-owned defense company in Abu Dhabi, has invested heavily in AI warfare. And not any AI warfare. It acquired a 30% stake in an Israeli drone firm, Third Eye Systems, and partnered with the US defense company Anduril Industries. Anduril itself works closely with Palantir Technologies using AI systems like Lattice, which, quote, accelerates complex kill chains by orchestrating machine-to-machine tasks at scales and speeds beyond human capacity. So here's the real issue. If a machine selects the target, who is responsible for the outcome? Does delegating moral accountability and legal responsibility to machines exempt human actors from the full extent of their crime? If an AI labels civilians as collateral damage, does that reduce human accountability or just obscure it? Because these systems don't eliminate bias, but they scale it based on data that we, or the Israeli army, give it. And that brings us back to you, because these systems run on data, civilian data. The more you engage with these systems, the more data they have, and the more data they have, the more powerful they become.
I would argue that even if software, there's nuances there. I would argue, how do you remove accountability even if you are relying on software? Like, you still ought to have some
here's
sense of, did you follow best practices? Did you have a check on it? There's still, at the end of the day, somebody decided to carry something forward.
Well, but the way they wiggle out is they use something like these limited liability companies as an excuse.
Yeah.
But it's a
liability accountability is a challenge everywhere, and it's nuanced, and I don't think there's a single answer for everybody, but you should not sort of have a single answer. Like, this is the centralized answer. In fact, the robustness of a market is often the robustness of how the jurisprudence, how it's actually adjudicated. How do you actually have, it's a legal system. It isn't just a single court that decides. You've got lots of intermediate places where conversations take place where people can be held accountable. Oh, I couldn't hold you accountable in criminal court, but I hold you accountable in state court or in federal court.
Right. But what we've had is all these different creations of international organizations that have various forms of sovereign immunity. And when you add software bots having sovereign immunity to that, we're in.
I wouldn't be supportive of that. That sounds like a disaster.
No, we all but we're in this. We're back in one of these blossoming periods when it's wild, and somebody just said to me on the phone today, "This is totally out of control. It's totally wild." And I said, "Oh no, it's just begun.
It's just begun.
It's just begun."
No, and that's exactly right. Because what I'm seeing in my industry is a transformation of how people write code.
Mm-hmm.
It's a big
It's wild.
Deal. It's wild. And it's happening quickly.
Right.
Right. And so a lot of knowledge work is that way. Any kind of, well, I have to do this thinking and then I produce something. Everybody is leaning on AI to help them.
Right.
And code, in fact, Anthropic publishes that 80% of the code they write is essentially agentic sourced. Like, so 80%. And inside of my company, I'm also telling people to lean into using agents I call it agent first. But the key to doing that well, I think, is modular, accountable tools. You don't have a monolithic thing that agents just produce and hope that it works. Like, it actually, you have to tie it into a human in the loop accountability somewhere. Now, that can be varied depending on the story. I'm not going to give a single answer for how that should work. That's why we've actually broken down our framework of how we tell people to build intelligence hubs. We actually have 3 concepts. We teach people how to think about using the AI. Frames, cogs, and ops are the words we put around this. So the intelligence hub is just your own AI story. A cog is your own agent. It's your model plus the context of that model. So right now, most people use Claude or Codex or OpenAI as their cog. But the cog enables you could do whatever you want. You could use an open source model. You could use one that's specialized. And then it's not just the model, because what makes the cog useful is the context you give it, the system prompt, the information you're giving it. Oh, I'm going to feed it with my quarterly information to this model, and then I'm going to ask questions about that.
Right.
So that quarterly information with some system prompting and the model could be a cog. And then you can talk to that cog. And that would be a simple example of what I call an op. An op is a program that has human in the loop that might use one or more cogs to produce an outcome.
Right.
And this becomes like, it's an application. Just like in the world of desktop apps, you'd click on a Word or Excel, and I'm running that app.
So let me ask you a practical
cog
question.
is the compute, and an op is the thing you do with the compute that will have human in the loop. It's the process you're automating.
So if I take, for example, all the accounting data of a small business company, and I have my own OpenTeams AI on my server.
Yeah,
I've got it.
And remember, we come help you build it. So it ends up being your AI that OpenTeams helps you build. We're like a custom home builder. We'll come in and help you own the build. We'll give you the keys. We can maintain it as long as you want.
Can I put on my financial data and then look at it in very dynamic different ways?
Absolutely. You can, because then you're comfortable. You're not nervous that somehow your financial data.
So I can do a lot of cost data analysis.
You could do all kinds of analysis, because not just the AI, because the important thing people understand is AI gives you the natural language interface to computing. So it's not just that, I'm waiting on this token predictor to give me answers about my finances. No, there's actually a host of financial tools, but programming them has always been hard. Like, you got to become a specialist. There's lots of people who use Excel very brilliantly, but a lot of other people that don't use it brilliantly. All of a sudden now everybody can use Excel brilliantly because they've got AI to help them figure out the commands to run.
Yeah.
And so what AI becomes is this natural language interface to computing.
Right.
And the key is, for it to do its job really well, it needs access to data and access to tools. So that's partly why a guy like me,
we always get back to data sovereignty.
Exactly. Data sovereignty, and then compute sovereignty is, where where the compute's happening, the accountability, the limits, the access controls. So, because most people will want, I want this group to see that, but I don't want everybody to see that. Like a lot of organizations, you have a login to something where you have permissions, you have silos. The whole company, if I'm an intern in a company, I don't get access to all the corporate financials.
Right.
I have, we spend a lot of legal effort to create confidential information cycles, silos.
So you
need to couple that with your AI story so that you have role-based access controls tied to the models you're using, so you can do exactly that. You can get immense capability.
So have you heard this story about the AI? And I've just seen it quick in headlines and I haven't dived in, so I apologize. But story of the AI who got let loose on the company and destroyed all their data?
For sure. Yeah, there's several people. It's actually somebody at Meta accidentally let the agent delete all their one data table they had. So because again, an agent is just a token predictor producing a tool. And if you allow that to say, here's a tool, and then you give it access, just run that tool whenever it wants, it may come up and say, okay, the tool I'm going to run is delete the table. And it could, because then you ask it why. Why'd you do that? But if you're good idea.
Put AI on your own server and give it access to your data, how do you make sure it only does things that help you?
It's the harness around it, because the AI won't delete your table if you don't give it access to do that. There's something called create, read, update, delete. This a CRUD interface. So you don't give it update and delete access. You just give it read access.
Okay, so we we occasionally have spooky guys interfering with our stuff.
How is that right?
Right.
Okay.
So is that a danger?
I don't know. It depends on what you mean by interfering with your stuff. I mean, ultimately, I would say AI can assist you in countering that. You know, because basically it can help you make more aware. Oh, something odd here happened.
Could you put a frame on that no matter what, you never ever do these things?
Exactly. In fact, you brought up the final word frame, which is how we're going to lean in initially. Because what a frame is a frame is simply alignment technology. It's a simple thing. It's a markdown file with a little bit of header that tells who owns it and what it's for. But it just simply aligns the cog or the AI or the model to say, this is what I want out of this. Right. And once we've introduced this idea of frames, we're using it everywhere. We're using it to align our partners, we're using it to align our investors, we're using it to align in the company, because we know that in our company and in lots of other companies, people are going to be using AI agents, cogs, hopefully, but right now they're going to be using OpenAI or Claude or anything else. But ones you own, you're using it to ask questions, to say things. And so all of a sudden you're using your agent, I'm using my agent. How do we keep the whole company aligned? Right. Well, you need to frame the conversation.
Right.
So frames are a very straightforward technology that just simply allows you to, I'm taking my frame here's Catherine's frame. So I'm going to have a conversation with Catherine. I'm going to use Catherine's frame because she publishes her frame. This is how I think of the world. This is my project. Or maybe it's someone like you, Catherine, would have like 200 frames. You'd have a frame for the topics you're interested in.
There is that complaint.
Correct. I understand that because it's not, you can't encapsulate Catherine in a single text file, right? But you can encapsulate a conversation you want to have.
Right.
So for example, we could have an AI enabled. So if somebody's listening to our podcast, to this conversation, they could have a frame that helps them glean what they're interested in. Or we could publish a frame about the podcast to help their AI summarize it for them.
Right.
Anyway, so this idea of frames, cogs, and ops these are concepts. And then we help people create their technology so they can recapture ownership of AI into their
so
hubs.
If I'm in the world, I'm listening to this, how can I interact with OpenTeams? I can be a customer. Can I be, I think you're going to do an offering. We could be an investor.
You could be an investor.
I'm not recommending investments. I'm not, but my general counsel
if anybody's interested, talk to me. You can be an investor. You can obviously be a customer, or you can be a champion. You can just be somebody who takes our open source tools and promotes them.
How do we find you?
So at openteams.com, obviously go there. I'm on X at TE Oliphant. You can find me. You can also find me on LinkedIn personally. You can find me Travis Oliphant. In fact, if you just Google my name, you'll find lots of ways to connect with me. Or you can email me at travis@openteams.com.
Okay.
So
and what's the perfect size of a company who would interact with OpenTeams?
That is a great question. We actually will accept any size company, but if they're small enough, we have an incubator. We call it a launch program, where sometimes we may hand to our sister organization that helps companies get started, or we might hand to a partner. For example, if because ultimately, if to engage with us full time, it's usually around $25K to start.
Right.
And then it can go up from there, of course. But if you don't have that money to spend, that's fine. Then you can engage as simply a consumer of our open source technology.
Right.
We will have, there's partners to talk to. The one thing I absolutely have to talk about is the Applied AI Society.
Oh,
so the Applied AI Society is a nonprofit activity that's meant to connect. I believe there should be millions of applied AI engineers, applied AI scientists who are helping each other and helping their businesses use AI effectively.
Right.
So this is
that's a great idea.
So I started the PyData ecosystem back years ago when I started Anaconda, and I saw the need for people to get together to help each other use open source effectively. Right. So it's the same thing. How are we going to help each other use open source AI effectively?
Right. And it's moving so fast.
It's moving so fast.
And I got bulletin boards don't do it. You need a human being.
You need a human being. And in particular, you need to meet with real people. So it's a way for local chapters to have meetings, and people can come together and they can have support from here's information
it's called
topics. Applied AI Society. AppliedAISociety.org. And you can just attend a local meetup. We're just getting started. We've had one in Austin. We're having them in the Bay Area. There's folks all over the world.
That's a great idea, Travis.
It's what I do. I love to organize people.
You do. Every time you turn around, you go through your history. It's like, let's create this community. Let's create that community. You're a community creator.
I'm a community creator. And then that led to becoming a business creator.
Yeah.
Like I started as a community creator, and that led to helping business creation because like you said before, to support the communities.
Right. So one of my interests in OpenTeams was, if you look at the networks that we're building, we need a way to connect.
Yes.
We're using a social media software an open source software called Connect, which really doesn't do it. We need
something a little bit stronger.
Yeah. We need something much more powerful than what
Well, these days it's easier and easier to produce what you need. Exactly. This is what I'm a big fan of Python, because Python was the original natural language programming. What it led is people who weren't deep in the bowels of programming to write what they wanted and see it show up on the computer. So Python attracted a lot of domain experts. Well, with AI now, you can actually just write English. All of a sudden you write natural language, and then the AI translates that to some other program.
Right.
So all of a sudden, lots of people can now steer the computer and create code.
Right.
Now, there's challenges with that. And many of these challenges we've seen in the Python world, because when you bring, there's ideas of algorithms and structure and infrastructure and scale. There's certain properties of software engineering that do need to be understood to scale something. But in order to produce
the most important is O'Brien's law.
O'Brien's law.
Do you know what O'Brien's law?
I don't.
Do you know what Murphy's law was?
I do.
Okay.
Yes.
So Murphy's law was?
If something can go wrong, it will.
Right. O'Brien's law was Murphy was an optimist.
Murphy was an optimist. Yeah, I love that. Actually, there's another one. Oh my goodness, I've forgotten the name, but it's software will reflect the organization that produced it.
That's true.
So the software libraries, I think there's a name for that. It's escaped me at the moment, but you can look it up. It's easy. And that's absolutely true. So that's why, to me, I just gave a talk actually describing community is bigger than code.
Right.
Because actually, even the open source ecosystem, what I loved about it was it created communities of people. And in the same way, we need to enable that same energy to take AI into the hands of a distributed ecosystem. Right. So that's the mission of OpenTeams and the ecosystem, where people rule.
People rule.
People rule. People are accountable, and the AI is a tool
that
enables all of us to have. And that's what makes me an optimist long term. Short term is going to be a challenge. Short term, we've got some challenges ahead of us. But long term, I'm an optimist, because this tool is going to empower so many people to become their best selves, and then to have that search tool you talked about.
We're going to use this tool to help me figure out how we stop the automatic third block of programmable money.
So let's talk about that. Yeah, I'd love to help. That sounds like a worthy goal. Okay.
Well, anything else you want to bring out? This has been a fascinating conversation. As I have to tell you, we had fun in the Netherlands.
We did. It is phenomenal. I loved my time there so much, actually.
It's beautiful.
It's a beautiful place.
Although you weren't necessarily there at the best time of year, but
that could be true. My aunt actually spent a lot of time in the Netherlands, and she's talked a lot about it, but really I hadn't gone much. One of my dear friends who actually runs a company called Quansight was a company that led to OpenTeams and to the venture funds. Quansight now focuses on helping open source communities help companies use open source effectively.
Right.
Because a lot of companies will end up hiring people, like you said, I could just hire somebody and do open source. That is true. Sometimes, though, you need that person you've hired to be able to connect to some other people.
Yes, absolutely.
They may need a support structure.
Yes,
and so
absolutely.
Quansight is a company that provides that connection back to the community so that actually you can effectively drive, I need this change in open source. Well, how do I get that done? Well, so Quansight becomes Quansight contracts with any company that is looking to use open source effectively. Right. And it's a pattern, honestly. And one of the things I've been really driving is I love finding repeatable, scalable patterns.
Right.
And patterns that lead to distributed prosperity. So that's what drives me. That's why everything I do is kind of oriented toward that kind of capability.
Right. Now
it's completely aligned with your distributed. We can't have programmable
Here's what
money.
we need to do. Okay. So it's a much longer conversation. Maybe we'll do this in part 2. But what we need to do is, if you look at everybody's 401k and IRA, they're all financing the things they say they hate. And we need to create a bridge for their capital to leave the things they hate and come over and start financing building this world.
So I'd love to talk to you about that, because actually, ever since I started in business in 20 years ago, I've been showing people how they can use their 401k and IRA to support these small businesses, actually.
Right.
And I've done it multiple times, and there's a lot. So I know more about that than anybody should, actually.
We need to talk about
We should talk about that, because I've done a ton to help people translate their 401k into businesses. So people invested in Anaconda, people invested in Quansight, people invested in my previous companies, and they've been able to do very, very well. But with the accountability, That's the key. It's like it's still it's
but
a choice.
If you
but
look at currently what's going on in changes in the law in both index funds and 401ks.
I've been hearing about this.
We're watching a meltdown of financial controls.
Yeah, the challenge is it's like you still have to have accountability. And so you need to have it distributed so that you can make a choice about what to invest in. But it's ultimately, and I understand people say, well, you don't have enough knowledge to understand. Well, guess what? With your assistant AI by your side,
you do.
You now can. Right. So there's no reason to think that we've got to somehow give control over to somebody that's just going to
but you have to grow up and take responsibility.
That is also true. That is also true.
That's the hard part. I've done that. It's hard.
That is the hard part.
That is
and
the hard
I
part.
definitely agree with you, Catherine, and I'm not naive about that.
No, because you've done it. You know how hard it is.
I know how hard it is. I also know how hard it is to get other people to do it and to recognize. And so people are, that's frankly why the control element, why the centralists win so quickly, is because they tap into that desire people have just to be taken care of.
Yeah.
They do.
So there's a wonderful movie. We have a movie of the week on the Solari Report. And there was a wonderful movie about 8 weeks ago called Shillings from Heaven.
Oh, yeah.
And it's about a town in Austria in 1932 that was basically bankrupt. It's the Depression. Businesses were bankrupt. The town was bankrupt. But tons of work needed to be done.
Yeah.
And so they couldn't form a community currency because of the laws. And so the mayor came up with a program called work certificates and used it to pay people to do all the public works projects. But the magic started to happen when the priest one Sunday said, announced at church to all the shopkeepers, take the work certificate. And the church got the liquidity going.
Oh, so the church encouraged them to use it as a currency.
Right. And so the prosperity blossomed.
That's an amazing story.
And so all the mayors from around Austria came to see what they were doing. So in swooped the central bankers to shut it down. And so that's what we need to be prepared when all of this works, because I know it will, and they swoop in to shut it down. What's our plan? Because the last time I spent 11 years dealing with that. And so we need a jump the curve solution.
You know more than I do about that, I'm afraid, at the moment. But I'm interested in, I think part of it is you have to get people to be aware.
Yeah.
So they actually pick, they're not persuaded inappropriately. They're not persuaded against their best interests.
Exactly.
Because that's what happens all the time.
I know.
Effectively, they're persuaded against their actual best interests.
I know.
And they trust in the wrong advisor.
We have so much content on this at the Solari Report.
I'm aware of some of that. I've just become more aware of the Solari Report and the wonderful work you do there. But it's true. It's a fantastic. In fact, I think a lot more people should be aware of the work you have.
I checked with our customer service person, and we have 51 subscribers in Utah.
Oh, so you need a lot more than that.
I need a lot more than that.
And then
I can come to Utah all the time.
People I know. Let's put a goal. Maybe I can help you do that. I think you need about 1,000 at least.
That would be great.
I think you can get to 10,000 actually, potentially. Anyway, but you should have a lot more than 50.
In Utah.
Yeah.
Not on the planet. In Utah.
Way more. Yeah.
Okay.
But in Utah for sure.
Okay. Well, Travis, it's been great. It was great. I when I was in the Netherlands, I kept saying you have to meet Marlo Oakes and his wife Elaine, and it was a.
We hit it off really quickly. It was a phenomenal.
I was sure you guys would love each other, but I underpredicted.
Yeah,
so we had a great dinner.
Yeah, we had a great dinner, and it's great to meet them. Great to be aware of so many people.
I don't have. All I have is an intuition, but if you look at how talented and capable Marlo is, with your knowledge of technology and help now that you're moving back to Utah, I just see something, something's going to happen.
I'm hoping to make a difference because, like I said, I'm driven by helping people be prosperous and in a peaceful way.
Right.
That's what drives me. And I see whenever I see the opportunity for people to become stronger, better owners, I get excited by other people's success. So it makes me maybe odd in some businesses, but to me, business is perfect because I love other people's success too.
Well, but here's the thing, you keep hearing all these scary stories, AI is going to destroy employment. But if you look at the tool, it should fuel massive entrepreneurship.
Correct.
And new family
The risk
wealth.
is not lack of employment. The risk is concentration of wealth.
Right. And so that's why if you look at the leadership here, both the business and some of the political, like Marlo, if there's ever a culture where this could happen,
I agree.
In the right way, it's here.
I completely agree.
Yeah, that's probably why you're moving back.
One of the reasons. Texas is a good place too.
Yeah, it is.
There's a lot of, so I was in Texas. I think there's finding these enclaves, then joining them together, and then kind of around the world, because I also see this as a potential to help lift the emerging economies.
Absolutely.
I have a lot of interests and connections in Africa and Latin America and the Philippines, because open source got used by so many people.
Right.
Like literally I've given talks all over the world
because they all
use it.
They're not locked into legacy.
Correct.
They can jump.
They could jump 100, 150 years faster forward because they don't make the mistakes that are, you've documented some of these challenges that they didn't have to go down that route. Like we went down these centralized routes that actually hold us back.
I don't know. All I can say is, if you think it's wild now, you ain't seen nothing.
Well, let's tip to that. Let's hopefully that's exactly what happens.
Well, I think this is the year of the fire horse. I keep talking about it. And the only way you deal with the year of fire horse is you just charge forward.
Charge in.
You charge in and you charge forward. So Travis Oliphant,
I love your leadership on that.
You're gonna help us charge forward.
Awesome.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Great to meet you. Great to be here.